So we can start with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 O my Lord, the Lord of the Krishna I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very meaningful converse, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srimad Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayashupateshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhagavati naishtati. By the great abundance and class of Bhagavatam, and by the service of the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose grace is granted into songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes to the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Okay, so Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you for joining us in the Bhagavatam class today. And before starting, I would just like to say and ask for your blessings. So today's topic for discussion is actually this whole book. I don't know if we'll be able to discuss the whole canto in 1 hour because it's quite impossible. But we'll try to discuss the main points. And as you guys have also been attending these Bhagavatam classes, because when the semester started, we started with Canto 6. And please add on your points, and I will be keeping the floor open for discussions. So please feel free to add any point that you feel like, okay, this might help here. Okay. Let's start. So Canto 6 describes about the protection given by Krishna to his devotees. And so at the end of 5th canto, we talked about all the planetary systems, right? Where descriptions of all the planetary systems were given. And with that description also came the descriptions of hellish planets. When Parikshit Maharaj heard those descriptions, he was actually quite overwhelmed. He was being compassionate, and compassionately in the starting of 6th canto, he asked this question to Shukadev Goswami: how can jivas be saved from having to enter hellish life conditions? So this is the relation between the end of 5th canto and then how 6th canto started, and why all of that Ajamal's pastimes, Ritasura pastimes, Indra's pastimes were actually discussed in 6th canto, right? Okay. So you can open the first history of the life of Ajamala. So how we're going to go is before every chapter, there's some summary of every chapter. So we'll read that first and try to take out the main points from every chapter, right? So we have 19 chapters, so we'll try to take out as much as we can. Okay, who would like to read? Go ahead.
Throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, there are descriptions of 10 subject matters, including creation, subsequent creation, and planetary systems. Sukadeva Goswami, the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, has already described creation, subsequent creation, and the planetary systems in the third, fourth, and fifth cantos. Now, in the sixth canto, which consists of 19 chapters, he will describe Poshana or protection by the Lord.
The first chapter relates the history of Azami, who was considered a greatly sinful man, but was liberated when fourth order carriers of Vishnu came to rescue him from the hands of the order carriers of Yamraj. A full description of how he was liberated, having been relieved of the reaction of his sinful life, is given in this chapter. Sinful actions are painful both in this life and in the next. We should know for certain that the cause of all painful life is sinful action. On the path of fruitive work, one certainly commits sinful activities, and therefore, according to the constitution of Karma Kanda, different types of atonement are recommended. Such methods of atonement, however, do not free one from ignorance, which is the root of sinful life. Consequently, one is prone to commit sinful activities even after atonement, which is therefore very inadequate for purification. On the path of speculative knowledge, one becomes free from sinful life by understanding things as they are. Therefore, the acquirement of speculative knowledge is also considered a method of atonement. While performing fruitive activities, one can become free from the actions of sinful life through austerity, penance, celibacy, control of the mind and senses, truthfulness, and the practice of mystic yoga. By awakening knowledge, one may also utilize sinful reactions. Neither of these methods, however, can free from the tendency to commit sinful activities.
By Bhakti Yoga, one can completely avoid the tendency of sinful life. Other methods are not very feasible. Therefore, the Vedic literature concludes that devotional service is more important than the methods of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Only the path of devotional service is auspicious for everyone. Fruitive activities and speculative knowledge cannot independently liberate anyone. But devotional service independent of karma and jnana is so potent that one who has fixed his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna is guaranteed to meet the Yamadu is guaranteed not to meet Yamadutas. The order is guaranteed not to meet Yamadutas, the order carrier of Yamaraja, even in dreams.
To prove the strength of devotional service, Sukadeva Goswami described the history of Azamila. Azamila was a resident of Kanya Kubza, the modern Kanuz. He was trained by his parents to become a perfect Brahmana by studying the Vedas and following the regulative principles. But because of his past, this youthful Brahmana was somehow attracted by a prostitute, and because of her association, he became most fallen and abandoned all regulative principles. Azamila begot in the womb of a prostitute 10 sons, the last of whom was called Narayana. At the time of Azamila's death, when the order carriers of Ramaraja came to take him, he loudly called the name Narayana in fear because he was attached to his youngest son. Thus he remembered the original Narayana, Lord Vishnu. Although he did not chant the holy name of Narayana completely, offensively, it acted nevertheless. As soon as he chanted the holy name of Narayana, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu immediately appeared on the scene. A discussion ensued between the order carriers of Lord Vishnu and those Yamaraja, and by hearing the discussion, Azamila was liberated. He could then understand the bad effect of fruitive activities and could also understand how exalted is the process of devotional service.
Sure. So, Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadeva Goswami a question, like, how can jivas be saved from having to enter hellish life conditions? So, Parikshit Maharaj was like, okay, I've told Parikshit Maharaj. Shukadeva Goswami was like, okay, I've told Parikshit Maharaj 5 cantos knowledge. So he was like, I'm not gonna just tell him the highest perfection right now, I will test him. So how did he test him? He said, okay, you don't want to enter hellish life conditions, you should atone for your sins, right? So he's like, okay, do karma kanda, if you based on what kind of sins you have done, atone for it based on shastric evidences, right? So Parikshit was like, okay, but he he realized a problem with it. So that problem he describes in verse 6.1.10. Can you please open it, Prabhu? Can anybody read the translation? Okay.
Sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts is victimized by sinful life again. I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like bathing of an elephant. For an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath and then throws dust over its head and body as soon as it returns to the land.
Yeah, so if someone does karma kanda and they keep on atoning for the sins that they did, they do sin again and then they keep on atoning because the tendency of sinning has not gone away, right? The tendency to still sin is still there. It's like an elephant who goes into the water to wash himself up, but then comes out and throws the sand on him again. Right? So that's the problem that Parikshit Maharaj realized with this answer. And then Shukadev Goswami Maharaj was like, okay, next throwball he gave. It's like, okay, do Jnana Kanda. Based on get to know about the sins and then don't do it. Right? And then he said like if one follows the regulative principle of knowledge, he gradually progresses towards liberation from material desires. 6.13 and 14.
First chapter.
13 and 14.
Where is
So he says, my dear king, if a deceased person eats the pure uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulative principle of knowledge, he gradually progresses towards liberation from material contaminations. Okay, so here also he's like trying to just say, okay, do Jnana Kanda, and that's how you will get liberated. But then Parikshit Maharaj says, in the next verse, 13 and 14, can someone read it? No, 14 and translation, yeah. Can you read it?
She wants to read it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non-violent. Follow the regulative principles and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus, a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, words, and mind. These sins are like the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity.
Right, so you see it says temporarily purified. Right, it's temporary. So now Parikshit Maharaj is like, okay, you're giving me Jnana Kanda, but then it's like you burn the whole forest of sin, but the roots are still there. From the top, you see, okay, we know that this is not true, this is not right to do, we have the knowledge, but then as soon as there's the first opportunity that they get, a very favorable opportunity in which they can sin, they end up doing it. Why is that? Because the roots are still there. Right? And then Shukadev Maharaj is like, okay, my disciple is asking the right question. So then he opens up the highest permanent solution, which is Bhakti in verse 15 of the same chapter.
Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays.
Right. So Bhakti is like a sun ray coming down to dissipate all the fog. Right? It's like a permanent solution. It destroys the tendency to sin, as well as it uproots the seed of like whatever the propensity was there to do it. It destroys all the past sins and also the propensity to sin again. So it's like a permanent solution. And so the main limb of bhakti is chanting of the holy name, right? So to give an example of that, the story of Ajamila was discussed in this canto. So as we read the story of Ajamila a bit, can anybody like to describe what it was, if they would like to share? One point each works too.
He was in the right path, he was in the devotional path, but some what do you call the exposure to wrong thing kind of was the reason behind his gives up on all the Brahmanical qualities and start doing the sense gratification. But still, because of his past karmas, maybe, or because of his past devotional services, when his 10th son was born, I just forgot the son's name. Was
Yes, Narayan.
Yes.
no, I mean, I mean the son who came.
Oh, okay. The
Son of Brahma.
The Brahmin who came to her, his house, he just he was looking for food or shelter or something, and then he just kind of said like, keep Narayan as your son's name. So maybe it was that, what do we call something in English?
Saint.
See, yeah.
That saint kind of blessed him with, kind of by giving his son Narayan name, the Narayan name. And that's where kind of he was already protected, I felt. That he just gave him that protection out there. And when he was about to die, since he was so much attached with his son, and he wasn't calling Krishna Narayan, but he was just calling his son Narayan. But there was, those feelings were full of love, attachment, and very honest for his son, but the name was for the kind of, real pain. And the real desire of the soul is to see the sun. And that's why Narayan was kind of came up here and sent his Dutas to give him another chance to get back to God.
Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu. And I think everybody would have these two questions that are answered in Prabhupada purport by Prabhupada. And it's actually in chapter 2, and we can discuss this first and then go back and discuss about what Vishnu Dutas and Yamadutas talk about, right? So it's in the verse, it's in chapter 2, verse 49. So the question is like, it may be accepted that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes free from all the actions of sinful life. However, one commits sinful acts in full consciousness, not only once, but many, many times. He is unable to free himself from the reactions of such sins, even after atoning from them for 12 years or more. How is it possible then that simply by once chanting the holy name of the Lord, one immediately becomes free from the reactions of such sin? Right? Like you asked that question, I remember way back, that how is that just by chanting one time of the name of the Lord that he was completely free?
How he just tempted so many times before, and then one thing came and everything went.
Right. I think it was the most important fact was that he chanted at the time of death. And it is said that whatever comes to your consciousness at the time of death, whatever you say, whatever you do, is actually what kind of life you get in the next birth.
Also, he chanted helplessly, like the intensity of chanting and that he was calling out to Narayan, like out of helplessness,
Yeah, so we'll discuss this here actually here. So can you go a bit down? Yeah, okay. Up. No, no, yeah. Yeah, here. So can someone read this?
Okay.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies by quoting verse 9 and 10 of this chapter. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard or for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a Brahmin or for one who engages in sex with the wife of his guru or other superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king of his or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection.
So the point is, by simply chanting the holy name of the Lord, such persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord. So how did Ajamila attract that attention? If you go a bit more up, after one paragraph, there's explanation. So Ajamila had named his son Narayana, and because he loved the boy very much, he would call him again and again. Although he was calling for his son, the name itself was powerful because the name Narayana is not different from the Supreme Lord. When Ajamila named his son Narayana, all the reactions of his sinful life were neutralized. And as he continued calling his son and thus chanting the holy name of Narayana thousands of times, he was actually unconsciously advancing in Krishna consciousness. Does that answer your question?
My cell phone's names are in
Okay. Okay, let's just keep reading. I think this might answer your question. One may argue.
Since he was constantly chanting the name of Narayan, how was it possible for him to be associating with the prostitute and thinking of wine? By his sinful actions, he was bringing suffering upon himself again and again. And therefore, one may say that his ultimate chanting of Narayan was the cause of his being freed. However, his chanting would then have a Nam Aparad. Namo Gala Yashyani Apa Buddhi. One who continues to act sinfully and tries to neutralize his sins by chanting the holy name of the Lord is a Nam Aparadhi, an offender to the holy name. In the response, it may be said that Ajamila's chanting was inoffensive because he did not chant the name of Narayan with the purpose of counteracting his son's truth. He did not know that he was addicted to sinful actions, nor did he know that his chanting of the name of Narayan was neutralizing them. Thus, he did not commit anaprat, and his repeated chanting of the holy name of Narayan by calling his son may be called pure chanting. Because of this pure chanting, Ajamil unconsciously accumulated the results of bhakti. Indeed, even his first utterance of the holy name was sufficiently to nullify all the sinful reactions of his life. To cite a logical example, a fig tree does not immediately yield fruits, but in time the fruits are available. Similarly, Ajamil's devotional service grew little by little, and therefore, although he committed very sinful acts, the reactions did not affect him. In the Shastras, it is said that if one chants the holy name of the Lord even once, the reactions of past, present, or future sinful life do not affect him. To give another example, if one extracts the poison fangs of a serpent, this saves the serpent's future repairs from poisonous effects. Even if the serpent bites repeatedly. Similarly, if a devotee chants the holy name even once inoffensively, this protects him eternally. He need only wait for the results of the chanting to mature in due process.
Does that answer your question?
That's what so many people, they have their kids' name like Radha, Krishna, and all. And most of the times they know they are calling Krishna. But if they keep the name with the purpose like, oh, by keeping this name, I can just somewhere protect myself. So that's where they are wrong. He did not keep the name to protect, just to neutralize his sinful activities. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so it was inoffensive. It was inoffensive because of that reason. Because he did not chant the name of the Narayana with the purpose of counteracting his sins. He did not think like, oh, I used to do bhakti and now I've fallen down. If I name my son Narayana and I keep calling him, I would be counteracting all this. And that would be a wrong mentality. And neither he did know that he was addicted to sinful actions. When a person is so much engulfed in sin, sometimes they find all the ways to justify what they're doing. So he didn't even know that he was in sinful. He was doing sinful activities, and nor did he know that him chanting Narayana was actually neutralizing those sins. So he said that even if the basic main point of this is, even if one chants offensively, and they don't know whenever they're chanting, it's actually counteracting all the sins that they did. So Shukadev Goswami was saying, for karma kandis, they have to actually know what kind of sin they did, so that they can go to Shastras, find atonement for that sin, and then do it. Or for Jnana Kandis, they need to know what kind of sin they're prone to do, and then they will get more knowledge so that they don't end up doing it. But for Bhakti Marg, it's not needed. It doesn't matter what kind of sin you did, what kind of propensities you have. It will all be eradicated as long as you're chanting the name. But it doesn't have to be chanted in a way that you're trying to counteract the sins. So what was that offense in the holy name? One of the 10 offenses, like chanting of the holy name to counteract the sinful
To
reaction.
commit sinful activities
Is
on the
on the
strength
strength
of
of
chanting
chanting
the
the
name.
name. Yeah, so that's the main point. That should not be done.
So right now, if I think like we all have done a lot of sinful activities in our past, and while chanting, I know that some way it's gonna help me to neutralize my bad karmas, my Krishna's mercies for that. Is that selfish motive behind chanting? Like on the beast. So
The selfish motive is to purify yourself. That is not selfish. Like, because you're purifying yourself so that you can serve Krishna nicely.
purifying the mouth because it's selfish.
My example was in Egypt, so he was called Narayana. So the sun came immediately to him. But when the sun came, he was not affected by that. When he said Narayana, suddenly he became elevated. He was his sinful actions were all gone.
Yeah.
Yes. Because of this Narayana, he was being troubled. Often, whenever he was asking Narayana, how to visit him. And at the last moment, he was dying, he called him.
I had a question because if any person names his children without any without any thinking of any selfish motive, if a person likes the name of Krishna like Vasudev and they names their children Vasudev or Krishna, so will their sinful actions will be neutralized?
Yeah, because
Like every
I think
Nearly almost all the names is
Yeah,
that's why it's a pure country. Like, that's why the earth is pure. Because everybody has a sukriti to that extent that they're naming their kids out of Shastric name, who are just the other names of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they have that sukriti, and that sukriti also comes from past life. Because if you see right now, India is also degrading in some contexts because they're taking the Western things, and then they're actually shy to name their kids after Shastric things. They're actually naming their kids, I don't know, I don't want to name anything, but it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, so they will be
So I have this question actually. Prabhupada has mentioned this verse from Varaha Purana in a lot of his commentaries or purports, and even Amarendra Prabhu used it. It says basically, if my devotee is unable to remember me at the time of death because of disturbance felt within the body at that time, then I shall remember my devotee and take him back to my supreme abode. So the thing is, then we have heard about a lot of stories like Gajendra or Bharat Maharaj. Then why this didn't applies over there?
So you're saying that Krishna has said that even if a pure devotee is not able to remember him at the time of death, he will come. But then what happened in the case of Bharat Maharaj? That he couldn't remember, he was remembering a deer at the time of death, and he got a deer body. Actually, that was a speedy ticket that Krishna gave him back to Godhead. So Bharat Maharaj is actually a pure devotee, right? But Krishna actually used him as an example to show that what will happen if, even if a pure person, like a liberated person, is not thinking of Krishna at the time of death, he will not go back to Godhead. That person will have to take another birth. But because that person is a pure devotee, Krishna will favor him, and that's why he had this memory of his past life, which helped him to go back to Godhead faster.
But if Krishna would have desired, he could have just gone in that birth only. Krishna can do anything.
That's the point. Krishna didn't desire that because he wanted to set an example, but also he didn't want to just leave his devotee in bewilderment. You want to answer?
Yeah, the point is that they all went back to Godhead at the end. So Krishna protected them. Krishna took them back to Godhead, right? So it doesn't matter like this lifetime or 2-3 lifetimes back, but Krishna will take you back to Godhead. If he says, then he will. And this was like an exception where he wants to set an example, like to show us that you just do devotional service, don't get attached to any material things. Like if Krishna is coming and giving his remembrance to everyone who is not attentive or who is not performing devotional service sincerely, then people will not follow sincerely. They will use this as like Krishna is there, he will take care, I can do whatever I want. So that is also there.
So we have a lot of chapters to discuss. Let's move ahead. So now when Ajamila was on the deathbed, 3 Yamadutas came and they were trying to snatch his soul from his heart with ropes and everything. So there's like also a very nice description in see here. So they were trying to snatch his soul out of his heart, and then he called Narayana 3 times, right? So then 4 Vishnu Dutas came to stop Yamadutas to take him to Yamaraj. So there's all these arguments that they put forth, like how can someone who is in charge of like taking care of taking the souls to Yamaraj can do such a big mistake that they're taking a person who is not who is not punishable for his offenses anymore because they've chanted the name of the Lord. So then they cut those ropes with their swords and they asked Yamadutas to go back. They shoot them away. So then that discussion was heard by Ajamila. So when Ajamila heard that discussion, he was very much taken back. He realized what was he did. He realized his mistakes, and then that's the second chance that Prabhupada talks about. There's also a book, smaller book, if anybody would like to read. They should read that book as well. Like it describes how Jamila got a second chance, and then when he got that second chance, he did not lose it. He went to Haridwar, he purified himself, and then he only concentrated on the lotus feet of the Lord, and that's when Vishnudutas came again at the end of life. And at that time, Ajamila took a spiritual body, which was optimal for him to associate with the Lord. And that's when Vishnudutas came and took him back to Vaikuntha. Okay? And then now, on the other hand, Yamadutas go back to Yamaraj, and they're very much like taken aback, like, okay, they told Yamaraj everything that this happened. 4 very beautiful men came and they stopped us from doing what we're doing. And then, are you not the authority? Like, is there any other authority than you, who is higher than you? And then Yamaraj wasn't offended. Like, if you go to someone and then tell them, like, are you not the authority? Like, is there anyone higher than you? People might get, what do you mean? Like, I'm the authority, I have power. But Yamaraj wasn't like offended or anything. He actually was happy that now he has the chance to speak about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he spoke to the Yamadutas, and I'll read the translations really quick. Okay, I'll read the summary part actually. Yamaduta approached Yamaraj, who very exhaustively explained Bhagavad Dharma, the religious principle of devotional service. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, Ajamila had met 4 ordered carriers of Lord Vishnu. They were very beautiful and had quickly come to rescue him. Yamaraj now described them. The Vishnu Dutas are all pure devotees of the Lord, the Supreme Person in regard to the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation. Neither King Indra, Varuna, Shiva, Brahma, and 7 rishis, nor I myself can understand the transcendental activities of Supreme Lord, who is self-sufficient and beyond the reach of material senses. With material senses, no one can attain enlightenment about him. The Lord, the master of the illusionary energy, possesses transcendental qualities for the good fortune of everyone, and his devotees are also qualified in that way. The devotee concerned only with rescuing the fallen souls from this material world apparently take birth in different places in the material world just to save the conditioned souls. One example is Srila Prabhupada. If one is someone interested in spiritual life, the devotees of the Lord protect him in many ways. Right? And then Yamaraj continued, the essence of Sanatana Dharma or eternal religion is extremely confidential. No one but the Lord himself can deliver that confidential religious system to human society. It is by mercy of the Lord that the transcendental system of religion can be understood by his pure devotee, and especially by 12 Mahajans. Other people cannot understand the glories of chanting the holy name of the Lord, and intelligent persons, however, take the devotional service of the Lord. So he's just trying to explain that there's someone beyond than me. There's someone but bigger authority than me who has the supreme control. And then he, at the end of this chapter, he actually asks forgiveness from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the prayer that he makes is actually very humble. And actually that. So he says, Yamaraj, considering himself as his servants to be offenders, spoke as follows, begging pardon from the Lord. O my Lord, my servants have surely committed a great offense by arresting a Vaishnava such as Ajamila. O Narayana, O Supreme and oldest person, please forgive us. Because of our ignorance, we fail to recognize Ajamila as a servant of the Lord, and thus we have certainly committed a great offense. Therefore, with folded hands, we beg your pardon. My Lord, since you are supremely merciful and always full of good qualities, please pardon us. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. And then Yamaraj describes who should the Yamadutas bring to him. And then he says, anyone who has never chanted the name of the Lord ever, who has not paid obeisances to Krishna ever, they should bring only that person. If even for once someone has chanted the name of the Lord, they should not bring him. So you see the benefit that devotees are trying to give to the souls on the earth when they go for Sankirtan, and then they ask, okay, please chant with us. And then, from that smaller card, they're able to chant even one time. And this is written in Bhagavatam now, and that we just read. Even once, chanting of the name can stop them from going to those hellish life conditions. There are actually 28 hells which are described in end of 5th canto, and every single hell has a different punishment attached to different sins that they did. And imagine just by chanting one time Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. They won't go to those hellish life conditions. So devotees are just so merciful. Yeah, so Shukadeva Goswami says, my dear queen, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is able to uproot even the reactions of the greatest sins. Therefore, the chanting of the Sankirtan movement is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe. Every time we go for a Sankirtan, we should read this verse before going, so everybody inspired to do more Sankirtan. And then it says, please try to understand this, and so that others will take its taste.
Which verse is it?
This is Canto 6, Chapter 3, verse number 31. Okay. Now we go to any questions? We're not going to complete the whole chapter, it's just impossible. We can actually just take discussion questions, or if not, we can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, okay. Chapter 4.
I think Jamin was saved by Vishnu or
He was saved by Vishnu Dutas. So,
Dutas are from Vishnu, from Maya.
no, from Vishnu. They're Vishnu Dutas. Like Vishnu Dutas are like the message carriers of Lord Vishnu. So they're sent by Lord Vishnu to protect all the devotees. Okay. Chapter 4 is the Hamsaguya prayers offered to the Lord by Prajapati Dash. This is a funny story actually. Let me see if I can give you the context of two chapters together. Okay. So, you remember when we did about Daksha in previous cantos when he offended Shiva? So he got the head of a goat, right? So he was so insulted by that head of a goat that he gave up his life, right? And now he came again as a son of who was it? Prachetas and Marisa. So this chapter 4 is actually the lineage continued of Uttanapada. Remember we were talking about the original people who actually had the progenation like Aditi, Diti, Uttanapad and everyone else, right? So this is the lineage of Uttanapad where Prachetas are talked about. So Prachetas are the son of Prachina Bharti, and Prachetas, okay. So Prachetas did a lot of austerities, right? And now Lord Shiva, when they were going to do the austerities, Lord Shiva came to them because they realized that they were pure devotees, and he was actually happy to instruct them. So he gave them Rudra Gita, right? So then, using that, they were able to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they got the darshan of Lord Vishnu. So after that, they got what do you say? They got boons from Lord Vishnu, right? So then, after they done the austerities, they have that power, so then they start progeniting. So Prachetas were married to Marisa, and then Daksha was born. So this time, Daksha wasn't born as a first-class Brahmin. He was actually born as a Kshatriya. And Acharya says that this is because of his offense to Shiva in the past life. It's because he offended Shiva, that's why he didn't got a very nice birth next life. So, but even in this life, Lord trusted him with the project of, procreating. So now Daksha was trying to progenate, but he realized that he wasn't able to do it in the right way. So he went to Mount Vindhya, something like that, Mount Vindhya, and then he did austerities there. And he offered Hamsaguya prayers to Lord Vishnu, which are actually very nice. If you get time, you should read. Even in the summary, they've explained Hamsaguya prayers. And by those prayers, Lord Vishnu was kind of impressed, right? So he came down and he gave a boon to Daksha. So what kind of boon he gave now? So he didn't give him bhakti. The main point here is that if you offend a Vaishnava, Krishna is never happy with you. He didn't give Daksha pure bhakti because his main intention to approach Krishna was to progenate. He was actually very attached to material and sexual life. So Krishna gave him a boon that you'll be able to do it nicely. He didn't give him bhakti. So the point is he offended a Vaishnava, and Acharya says that because of that he wasn't given bhakti. And now, what happened? So as soon as he got the boon, he married a girl, and then he had 10,000 sons. 10,000 sons, and were called something with the edge. I forgot. So Daksha sent them to do austerities in the forest. And what happened? So Narad Muni met them. So when Narad Muni meets someone, what does he do? He's a pure devotee. He tries to give bhakti to them. So now he told them a story with a hidden meaning. So that hidden meaning was to, why do you have to get into material life? You should just go and stay away from this procreation thing, and just you'll be able to go back to Godhead. So all the 10,000 Haryanas, something like that. And then they realized that, oh, what do we have to do with this material life? So they gave up everything, and then they took brahmacharya. They took celibacy vows. Now, Brahma is like, not Brahma, Daksha, he was very infuriated. He was like, Narada, like, what is this? So, okay. So then he again begot 10,000 children with his wife, and then again Narada Muni instructed them, and they all were brahmacharis. So, like 20,000 sons were actually brahmacharis. Like Daksha was actually very happy initially, like 10,000 children. That's a very huge contribution to his father's project, Lord Brahma, right? But then they all were like celibate. So now what does he do? So he got very infuriated, and he cursed Narada Muni that he won't be able to stay at one place for a very long time. Right? So what's the main point here is like, two devotees can actually have different services. So both of them are just trying to do their services. Narada Muni had the service of bringing the souls back to Godhead, right? And Daksha had the service of progeniting. Now they're not intentionally trying to conflict. They're not intentionally trying to throw each other's service off, but it's just conflicting service, right? So Narada Muni was, when he was cursed by Daksha, he was very calm and composed. He didn't curse him, or he didn't say anything back to him. But Daksha, being impatient, he cursed Narada Muni. Now he did another offense to another pure devotee of the Lord. Now he will pay. Now he has to bear consequences of that again, sometime, right? And now in the 6th chapter, Daksha is like, enough of this. Now he was being strategic, and what he did, he begot female children. He's like, so Narada Muni could not instruct female children to take celibate vows, because females are actually there to serve their husband, right? So he couldn't instruct them to just go be sannyasis. So females have to go to grihastha life. So then Daksha was like, okay, this is my chance. So what he did, he gave those daughters in charity to different Mahajans. Like, and there's a whole description of who were born of who. It's like very intricate details. You guys can go ahead and look it up. But the main point of main story that will help us to go understand the 7th chapter is that Aditi, one of the child of Daksha, daughter of Daksha, was married to Kashyapa Muni, and from Kashyapa and Aditi they got a son. His name is Twasta, who was one of the Adityas, one of the very elevated person. But he married a daughter of demon, and then from that union, two sons were born, Visha and Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa is the main person here. So Vishwarupa has both kind of inclinations, demoniac from his mother's side, and then demigod inclinations from his father's side. So Vishwarupa is kind of in the middle, right? So now, in chapter 7, what happens, just remember Vishwarupa, okay? Chapter 7, it describes a pastime of Indra in which he offends Brahaspati. Right? So Indra was so intoxicated and so engulfed in the material enjoyment with his demigods in a sabha, in an assembly, that when Brahaspati came there, he forgot to pay obeisances to him. He didn't realize, he didn't recognize that Brahaspati is there, so he did not pay obeisances to him. So Brahaspati realized that Indra is being prideful, so he left the assembly. So then, after he left the assembly, Indra realized what mistake he did. Indra realized that he offended his spiritual master, so he tried to find him everywhere. but he couldn't find Brihaspati. And because they offended their spiritual master, they lost all opulence and all power, and they lost in battle to demons. So demons were powerful at that time because they were following the orders of their spiritual master, Shukracharya. So this is another point here: never to offend your spiritual master. Right? So they helplessly went to Brahma to ask for help. So Brahma said, accept Vishwarupa as your priest, as your priest to help you win this war against demons. So they approached Vishwarupa. Vishwarupa was actually younger than them, but he had more knowledge. So this is another point. Anyone who is even younger to you but has more knowledge, accept them as your mentor. There is no shame in accepting someone younger to you as your mentor if they have more knowledge, if they have more, if they can explain you the science of God better than anyone, just accept them as your mentor. So Vishwarupa helped King Indra to win the war against demons using a shield called Narayana Kavacha. So, but Indra realized at the end of it that he was also helping, he gave the remnants of that yagya to demons also. Because he had inclination of both sides. Lord Brahma kind of told him that please be aware that he's inclined to both demons and demigods, but he didn't listen. So Indra got infuriated that, he gave the remnants to demons and he was afraid that demons might win over him. He beheaded Vishwarupa. Another offense against another pure devotee.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, there's just a lot of offenses that Indra did. So then he was chased by a Chandal woman in the whole universe. So he had to take a shelter in, I think, Mansa. So somewhere he had to take shelter, and then he had to stay there for 10,000 years. And then he had to distribute his sinful reactions between earth, women, water, and one more thing. Yeah, 4 things distributed. So the descriptions of that whole thing. Yeah, so that's till chapter.
Right.
I think I did till chapter 8. Chapter 9 and then are very recent. So we don't have more time. So.
Hare Krishna.
So yeah, chapter 9 is the appearance of demon Vridhasur, and that you guys can discuss. Maybe I can ask if we can schedule one more class to just give an overview of the whole thing, because I started that all night yesterday. But okay, thank you so much. We will stop
Hare
here.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. One